Hello. Yep, I'm gonna make a video here, just talking about my reaction to Ethan Klein, talking about the Infowars situation that happened with him. Um, it basically stems from the vaccine passport tweet that he did. And if you found this video, you probably know what it's all about, and you just want to see a reaction, you want to see what I got to say about it. Um, I doubt that it's going to get many views. I doubt that Ethan's going to see it himself, but I'm still going to put it out there anyway. So I just wanted this to kind of share my viewpoint on this because like it really does just summarize like everything I feel about Ethan Klein. Because like I'm a big fan, but at the same time, like I feel like he has a lot of bad takes on things, and I just kind of want to just kind of speak up and just kind of give my opinion on this. Yeah, so let me just preface that by saying complete transparency. Like I do have kind of like a love-hate relationship for this guy. Like not really so much hate, but dislike because just sometimes like I don't know, I just think he can be a bit much. So, but yeah, I just want to break this down. I want to give my opinion on it as we go through it. Obviously, the podcast is quite long, so I'm not going to do the whole thing. I'm just going to address this one particular segment because I was watching it and I was just having all of these thoughts, and I was thinking to myself, like, there's so many times when I have this and I just don't do it. I just don't make the video. And I think this is the time where I finally do it. So I'm just going to address what I think of both Ethan and Owen Shroyer's opinion here because I think that Owen's a little bit off on some things as well. But yeah, I think they're both right in some ways, but both wrong in some ways, and that's usually the way that things are. Most people just kind of like have this kind of black and white mindset where it's like, oh, I'm right about everything or he's right about everything, and that's just literally barely ever how things work. So I just think that this is a good way to kind of call it down the middle as best I can, and obviously you can share your opinions in the comments. But anyway, that's the preface. Let's go ahead and start this, and I'm just going to basically just break it down, give my opinion on different parts, similar to what Ethan does, where he pauses the video constantly, which obviously a lot of people find annoying, like I do sometimes. But I'm going to do a similar thing here, and I'm just going to give my opinion on a particular section of this podcast. But anyway, let's get to it. We'll start from this section here where he starts talking about the Infowars video.
Yeah, this shit is wild, honestly. I watched it for the first time last night because I was kind of trying to save my reaction. I didn't watch the whole thing. I had to bounce when he said that he accused me of liking to post pictures of my baby's butt on Instagram. Did you see that, Dan?
Oh, yeah. Who? Yeah, who?
It was the Infowars guy.
Oh, it was the Infowars guy. Got it.
I was like, oh my God. What? Everybody's a pedophile when they're the topic of conversation on Infowars. Anyway, let's watch.
Okay, so he does mention it a little bit here, so I'll touch on it just a little bit before we continue. He talks about the picture, but I will get into more depth about my opinion on that a little bit further on when he actually goes into it a little bit more. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of just point that out, just to let you know I'm still here. I'm not just going to let the video just completely run all the way through. I will pause it a lot to give my opinion. But anyway, let's get to it.
I'd still love to this day to have someone argue that they're pro freedom, but also they want
Kind of
everybody
quiet.
to take a vaccine.
Is it turned up on your end?
I'm maxed everywhere.
Okay. Their video is just kind of quiet. I'll turn it up. Go ahead.
I'll start it over.
Okay.
I'd still love to this day to have someone argue that they're pro freedom, but also they want everybody to take a vaccine.
Here, I'll make that argument for you right now. First of all, nobody's saying that everyone has to get a vaccine. First of all, your argument on the ground basis is flawed. You're doing a mega hyperbole. Nobody's saying that people should get mandated vaccinated, okay? So, first. Second of all, we don't have absolute freedom. Like we can't go kill somebody. We can't go rob somebody. We already don't have absolute freedom.
Okay, so this point that he makes here, he's talking about that people don't have absolute freedom. So therefore, the vaccine passport thing is like it's not much different than you being told like that you can't go kill people. Like it's the same kind of concept. You'll see that this happens a lot throughout this particular segment. There's a lot of kind of making comparisons between one thing and the other, and then he actually calls out Owen for doing the same thing, even though he's doing it. But basically, that's right. I'm just going to point that particular part out now, and I'll continue to give more points as it comes along.
So this whole notion of freedom he's talking about, it doesn't. What do you mean by freedom exactly? You have to get a license to drive a car, right? You have a driver's license, dipshit? Yes.
We want our freedom.
You know what I mean?
Okay, so one of the things that I actually thought when I first watched this through is he's making comparisons to other things like a little bit more forward. He says that he talks about like a teenager shouldn't be allowed to drive. They need to reach a certain age and they need like a license in order to drive, and that's similar to the kind of the vaccine passport thing. But the difference is in a lot of other circumstances, like you need like proof and you need like some form of evidence that you are safe. The difference with this is that this is about actually putting something in your body. That's the difference, is that it's not like about proving that you're qualified or proving that you have knowledge. It's about proving that you have been injected with something which you might not be willing or wanting to be injected with. And there's several reasons why people might not want to get a vaccine. It doesn't just have to be someone who's just quote unquote an anti-vaxxer. There's lots of people who have differing opinions about the vaccine and the vaccine rollout, the speed of the vaccine rollout, the fact that there's been multiple different vaccines all rolled out at once, the fact that there has been a couple of the AstraZeneca and the Johnson and Johnson vaccines have had issues with blood clots, where it's actually reached the news where they've talked about like recalling and stopping the vaccine rollout for a little while. Like there have been issues linked to these vaccines, so let's not pretend that there hasn't been any issues, and let's not pretend that without years and years of trials, that you can be 100% sure of its safety or even effectiveness. Like we cannot be 100% sure. There hasn't been animal testing, etc., etc. Like there's a lot of things to consider here. So I guess the point that I'm making is that with the vaccine passports, we want they basically want to have evidence that you have been injected with something that you might not feel comfortable being injected with, and that can infringe on your freedoms in the sense that the things that you were once allowed to do, the things that you were allowed to do normally, you are no longer allowed to do, you know? Anyway, let's continue.
You have a license for your guns? Yes. Fuck face.
Okay, so obviously, it's fairly typical. Like I do this myself. Like outside, I gotta give Ethan credit in the sense that he's live, he's on like air a lot, so it's not possible for you to filter out your opinions and filter out your emotions like all the time. It's the same with Owen. Like Owen comes from the exact same position. Like these guys are live, it's not edited. There is just a free flow of thought. So sometimes you're just gonna be like insulting each other. You're gonna be doing this, that, and the other. But like you'll notice again, there's a lot of this in this. Ethan takes the time to just degrade Owen instead of like beating him with arguments that like have like a lot of evidence, that have a lot of facts like backing it. He'll say a few statements in comparison to the vaccine passport, and then he'll just insult. Like, and you'll see this stuff happen quite a lot on the podcast. And also, I don't want to be like, as I said, I don't want to be like unfair. I feel that like Owen does do this as well sometimes. I think it's just like, I don't know. I think it's a weak kind of debate slash argument tactic to do. And I think it does happen quite a lot. But as I said, I think maybe it's just part of the pressures of being live and just like having your own opinions and emotions coming involved with the actual like facts and everything. So anyway, let's go.
Like everything in our life is regulated, bro. It's not a fucking new concept, and you're already going along with the ones that you don't mind, because you don't want to drive on the road with a bunch of dipshits that don't know what they're doing. Because you don't want to get run over by some fucking 13-year-old kid. Should a 13-year-old be able to drive a car? No. Is that infringing on his freedom? I don't know.
He's stealing it!
But here's the riff. If you believe in the vaccine and you believe it works so great and you get it, then why are you still worried about somebody else who's not been vaccinated?
So this is like the caveman argument where it's like you oversimplify something so much that it's almost just willful ignorance. It's
Okay, so that's literally what Ethan just did. He oversimplified it so much that it's literally just willful ignorance. And this is what I was talking about. He calls Owen out for it, but Ethan literally just did that. He literally just used a comparison of like a 13-year-old driving and having like, a license to own guns, etc., as the same as the vaccine passport. But like I said to you earlier, the difference is that you actually need to be injected with it. And there's like, it's different because it's like, it's put into your body. And also it opens the doorway for more of this stuff to become like used and manipulated in terms of the situation of like government having access to those kind of documents. Because that's the thing, is that like I don't know if Ethan's necessarily seeing the bigger picture, and this isn't a conspiracy theory, it's just like basic like rationale, that once that this is allowed, like once a vaccine passport is allowed, like once your health documents are allowed access to, in order for you to be permitted to do something or not to do something, then it will be continued to be done again in other circumstances. Do you really think that you're going to give an entity of power that power to do that, and that they're not going to use it again for something else that might not necessarily be as serious? I mean, there's an argument to be had if this is even that serious, not even getting into conspiracies, but looking at numbers, looking at facts. Like, there is like an argument to be had. Is this serious enough that we need to have people like having vaccine passports in order for them to take part, like in things like going to stadiums, in order for them to fly to different countries? Like, is this serious enough for us to introduce that system? Because as I said, once it's introduced, it's not being pulled back. The situation with 9/11 and everything that happened back then changed drastically the security measures in the airports and stuff, and that stayed the same. And it's a similar situation here. Like, when a crisis happens, the new things that are put into place are very likely going to stay. Similar to how there is a very high chance that once a large amount of people are vaccinated, there is still a chance that we may still be facing lockdowns. There is still a chance that we may still be wearing masks all of the time. And I've been saying this quite a lot, like in comment sections and stuff. I really want to see the people who are like defending all of this stuff keep that same energy in a year's time or 2 years' time, when they still have to wear masks, when there's still lockdowns, and there's loads of issues potentially with the vaccine not working. Like, oh, why didn't it stop it? When the new like information is coming out and the vaccine potentially didn't work, you know? That's my opinion on it. I honestly don't know the trajectory of the future, but I just have a feeling that no matter how many people get vaccinated, I just don't think things are going to change. I think that the restrictions are going to stay in place, and they're going to try and keep this going as long as possible. So anyway, that's my opinion on that so far. Let's keep going.
It's like there's so many reasons why people need to get vaccinated, and the whole conservative argument is like, if you're vaccinated, then why do you ever care if other people get vaccinated? And there's like a bajillion reasons, and they choose not to acknowledge a single one. For example, for example, the vaccination, as far as we know, it doesn't have unlimited usefulness. They say at least 6 months right now, so it's not unlimited.
Okay, so there's another thing as well. So you're literally admitting that the vaccine is not long term. So it's only 6 months. So not only are you agreeing to have a vaccine passport for you to have a singular shot, you are agreeing to have a vaccine passport to have regular shots. So obviously at the moment they're saying for a lot of people to take 2 doses of the vaccine. Do you really think that those 2 doses will be the last 2 doses that you have of the vaccine? And also, like, the vaccine is being changed, it's being altered, they're updating it, they're making it better, they're improving it over time, they're making changes over time. Who's to say that one of those shots isn't the one that makes you sick? You know? Who's to say that one of those ones isn't the one that gives you blood clots? You are giving away your freedom to resist and not want to take that in favor of allowing yourself to be reshot over and over again, because obviously 2 shots per year at least potentially is what we're looking at, and it's what is seeming that way as we go through this. But obviously that's not confirmed completely, but that's the way that it's looking. Yeah, I did have another point, but I forgot it, so I'll say it once I remember it. Let's continue.
Number 2, the biggest thing we need to worry about is we're kind of on a clock against the virus. If we don't eradicate it as soon as possible, it will continue to mutate. And
Okay, where does Ethan have this information from? How does he know this for sure? How does he know the form of mutation, the strength of mutation, etc., etc.? How does Ethan know this? Like, is he really as educated as he's trying to carry himself in this moment? That's something that I'm really interested in. I'm not saying that I do know, but I'm saying, does Ethan actually know, or is he just saying this stuff in defense of it like, and also as well, he's looking down here, so I feel like he's made some notes for this part in particular because he wanted to come across as like, informative. But is that information entirely true? Do we know that the coronavirus is going to mutate over time into a more deadly version, a more deadly strain? And do we know that the vaccine is going to prepare us for that or eliminate the virus before it gets to that point? Do we know these things, Ethan? Like, are we in the 100% no, or are we even in the 90% no of that? You know, there's a lot of information that's out there that says that there's a 98% chance if you've got a decent immune system, if you're below the age of, I think 70, and you've got a decent immune system, you have a 98% chance of survival of having, if you have the coronavirus. There's a lot of people that you probably like. I don't know if you're going to see this, Ethan, but there's a lot of people that you probably know who've had the virus and they've recovered. They've got through it. They felt ill for a while. They did whatever they needed to do in order to shake it off, and they're doing fine again. And there is a high chance that we're going to be seeing this as a seasonal virus, similar to the flu. Which, by the way, which we haven't really heard much about in a very long time. When was the last time you heard anything about the flu or anything about flu deaths? And also, another thing to kind of point out, when was the last time you heard on the news them talking about deaths? When was the last time you heard them talking about that? I'm not even trying to be conspiratorial here. You want to talk about facts, let's talk about facts. When was the last time you heard them talking about the amount of people that have died from coronavirus? They're not really using that anymore. They're not sharing those statistics. They're not putting it out. And if they are putting it out, those numbers are nothing compared to the way that they were in the beginning when all of this first started. You saw like there was like literally a YouTube stream that showed the amount of deaths worldwide with like counters on all of the, all worldwide, because obviously there was so much commotion around it around that time, and the numbers were much higher back then. So, that, and obviously in the news headlines, they couldn't stop talking about the death numbers. It was it was the highlight of every single thing. But as I said, I can't remember the last time. It's been a long time. It's been like several months since the last time I heard about actual deaths. One more thing I just want to throw out there, just before we continue with this, um, you know, cancer. Cancer, a point is made by cancer about cancer a little bit further ahead. Ethan makes a point about cancer. In the UK, it's actually 12 times more likely that you are going to die from cancer than you are coronavirus. And in this country in particular, people are not going to doctor's appointments. People are not going to see their doctor or go to the hospital when they're having early signs of cancer because they're worried about coronavirus and because they're worried about overwhelming, the medical staff. So they do not go and report their early cancer signs. And through that means that they are more likely to die from cancer because obviously the sooner that you capture cancer, the sooner that you address it, the more likelihood you have of survival. And a lot of people are ignoring those signs. A lot of people are ignoring lots of health conditions in order to try and avoid going to hospital and avoid going to the doctors because of the coronavirus pandemic. So there is an argument to be made about, how the coronavirus pandemic, the whole kind of thing, has altered people's want in order to look after themselves in other ways, and the amount of deaths from other things by comparison to coronavirus, which is ultimately what we're trying to avoid. We're trying to avoid death. I think we can all agree on that. We're trying to limit and reduce the death numbers as much as possible. And if you're limiting and reducing the death numbers by coronavirus a fair amount, but you're causing death in a lot of other ways, whether it's from people committing suicide or dying from cancer, because the committing suicide part is due to people, businesses closing down, livelihoods being changed, lots of different things have been affected by that. Like, if the death toll outweighs the amount of people that would have died if you let the coronavirus, like, not be addressed by, for example, vaccines, or if you used an alternative method, which are two medications, which I might leave on screen. I'm not sure because I don't really want to risk this video being taken down, but it probably will be for misinformation because that's just the way that it is. You really do need to weigh all things up side by side. And there is an argument to be made that a lot of things that have happened with this are completely lopsided in terms of the actual result of how people have approached it. But anyway, that was a big tangent. I'm going to let this continue, and I'll share my other views as we go.
Fear is that it will mutate to a point where vaccinations are no longer effective against it. And then all of a sudden, you've got COVID-19 just in circulation globally, like the flu.
Okay, this is speculation. Again, this is where I started with this. This is speculation. You're talking about something that theoretically could happen. It's like how they said theoretically and it could happen is that there'll be millions of people dead by this point. As you said, the number is 600,000 or so in the US, and the number is like I think 6 million worldwide. I don't know. You guys say the numbers a little bit later, but anyway, there was a lot of speculation about the high amounts of deaths coming, and this is what you're doing here. You're speculating, and you're kind of saying that people should make a defensive decision through speculation. But what I'm saying in retort is that by you making that decision, you might be putting yourself at risk by the actual vaccine itself, and you might also be putting a lot of other things at risk by keeping things like lockdowns in place very heavily, you know, having things like cancer treatments not being given out. There's lots of things to consider here. It's not just one thing. It's not just black and white, and it's very, very badly handled, I feel, from governments like almost worldwide. I just feel like it hasn't been handled very well, and I know there's a lot of people that share that view, and there's a lot of people who disagree. So, you know, that's the whole point of this. Say whatever you want. I'm not going to block comments here. I'm not going to block dislikes. Say whatever you want in the comment section. That's the whole point of this.
You're going to end up with millions of people dying every year globally from this new virus that we can stop right now in its tracks. Right?
You don't know that for sure. There's a chance that the vaccine rollout is going to help with that, but you don't know that for sure.
The other thing is that in order to protect, there's people like with going through cancer and stuff like that who have compromised immune systems who cannot get vaccinated.
Okay, all right. So you use this as an example, but as I said to you, there's literal cancer patients who are not receiving their treatment. They haven't been getting their chemotherapy and they haven't been diagnosed because of coronavirus fears. You know, you got to understand that fear is part of this. Like, no matter which way you cut it, no matter which way you spin it, fear has been a gigantic motivator in a lot of people's decisions around this. In a lot of people's decisions and a lot of people's ability to critical think has been adjusted and altered by fear. And that is something which has been prevalent throughout this whole thing. And that's something to really just consider, I feel. I don't think that should be something that should be overlooked for this whole sake of, pro-vaccine passports or anti-vaccine passports. Like, I'm just so tired of it. It's just constant. Like, it's just everywhere. Like, just people just having these discussions, but being one-sided. Like, it might seem that I'm more one-sided for anti-vaccine passport, but no, it's not even necessarily a case of like those are the things that I strongly think. It's a case of there's arguments to be made on that side that unfortunately are being censored, and this might even be censored, which I'll be very disappointed by. You cannot have discussions about this stuff without it being intervened with, and that's not good. That is not a good place for us to be. And, the point that Owen's making about freedom here, Ethan, and the point that he makes about you is that you lean towards the arguments that are safe, that are good for you and good for your career, good for your channel. So you align with the things which are really good for you business wise. And whether that's because it's your opinion or not, because later on you said, can't a guy have an opinion? I'll get to that point when we get there. But you align to things that support you and support your lifestyle and support your career, which is obviously understandable. Don't we all? We all align to things which support our livelihood. But the thing is that sometimes that can interfere with critical thought, because you're not just dealing with your life here, Ethan. You're dealing with like lives of people all around the world. Like, it's that big, it's that serious. We're dealing with people's lives all around the world. There should be more discussion. There should be more people in positions of, in medical positions that are allowed to have their opinions shared and heard without them being censored. There should be debate. There should be lots of different things explored. And I feel that we have gone down a route where certain people have been prioritized in that their opinion is more powerful and more factually correct without it necessarily being fact checked to be factually correct, and that's where we're at, I feel, with a lot of this. Anyway, let's keep going.
So we all have a responsibility as a fucking society. Sometimes you have to work as a society for the betterment of everybody, right?
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Ethan. We do. We need to work together. And part of doing that is having healthy discussions instead of insulting discussions with one another. And that's what this is turning into a lot of the time. And you also need to consider that your stance and potentially what helps everybody the most might not be the stance that's correct. You do need to consider that. You know, you have healthcare professionals saying that it is the best line of action in order for us to look after ourselves. But you do have healthcare professionals who also disagree with that. But as I said, their opinions are censored and they're not allowed to share their views. There are two medications that have been proven to be very helpful for COVID. Two medications that I will not state the name of. Like, you know what they are if you do know what they are. You don't know what they are if you don't know what they are. But again, it affects like if your video is going to be shown or not if you share that information. And it's just like you've got to really question a lot of things. You really do. You need to question a lot of things, like who benefits, how do they benefit, do they benefit from a financial side, do they not benefit from a financial side, like is there an agenda? You know, that's not even being conspiratorial. You need to question these things. We're human. Humans do horrible things, and because people are in a position of like healthcare does not mean that they're not capable of heinous crimes. There is a possibility of that, and I think it needs to be considered. That's all I'm going to say on that particular issue. And you know, ultimately what we want more than anything, I think I get a genuine sense that what Ethan wants is he wants people to be okay. He wants to look after himself, he wants to look after his family, and he wants the most people to be okay as possible. And I also get the sense that that's what Owen wants. That's what they both want. They both have the same goal. They want as many people safe as possible. Owen wants people to have as much freedom as possible. Ethan would prefer a world where things are more kind of um, civilized. So I feel that the argument between freedom and being civilized is what's happening a lot lately. So like you'll have like people kind of trying to fight for the rights of freedom, which includes things which kind of can be uncivil, and then you've got people trying to make things more civilized. So again, they're not, both of them don't have bad goals. Neither of them are bad people. They just want different things. But ultimately what we all want is we want people to not die, but unfortunately everybody has to die at some point. That's something else that we need to consider here. And you know, everybody wants, you know, you want as much peace as possible. We don't want all of this kind of like stress and like just arguing and just like disagreeing with each other all of the time. Like we don't all want that. Like I generally just don't think that this is what people want, like deep in their souls. But maybe it is, who knows? Obviously it's content, you know. So but anyway, again, tangent, but let's keep going.
You can't just be a rugged individual all the fucking time. That's why you have a license plate on your car, right? Because we all agreed that that's a good idea to have a get a driver's license. Because these people can't get shot, so they're always going to be at risk. So we need to get like 70% of the population vaccinated to hit herd immunity.
Okay, hold on a second, but like, so you're saying that I don't really know what to make of this point and if it's even true. So he's saying that cancer patients with weak immune systems cannot get the vaccine. I don't know if that's true or not. Somebody can say in the comment section if somebody's watching this, like if this does get views, you can tell me, is that true? Like, again, it's like you kind of want to check this stuff, like, and just be sure of it. And I know for a fact, Ethan's been proved in the past to not check things a lot. Like, it will go as far as Dan Googling a few things, and that's fact checked, you know? Like, if it's from like a website that has a reputable name and there's an article about it, that's fact checked. But I don't necessarily think that that's as far as it goes for fact checking something. If you're serious about your research, you check multiple sources and you get as solid information as possible. And I don't know if that's true what Ethan said there about like we all need to get vaccinated in order to protect the people that have low immune systems who can't get vaccinated. But also something else that I just want to point out. I have a vaccine leaflet here because I've been offered the vaccine that talks about it. It does not say here that you actually protect other people by having the vaccine. And I don't know that if that's ever been said. Again, you know, you can check me out. You can fact check me on that. You can put in the comments. As far as I know, the vaccination protects only yourself. You do not protect other people from having the vaccination. Like by stopping the spread, potentially not so much either, because it says inside of this leaflet that what it will do is it will reduce your reaction to the COVID, but not stop you from spreading it. I'm trying to look for the leaflet now, see if I can find it. There's a section here saying, will the vaccine protect me? The COVID-19 vaccination will reduce the chance of you suffering from COVID-19 disease. It may take a few weeks for your body to build up some protection from the vaccine. Like all medicines, no vaccine is completely effective. Some people may still get COVID-19 despite a vaccination, but this should be less severe. So it's essentially admitting here that it doesn't entirely stop the spread. If anything, it will reduce your reaction to the COVID, but most people are going to have a reaction that they're going to live through anyway. So the argument for getting the vaccine is to actually protect you from it, but you've got an immune system that's going to protect you from it anyway. But anyway, I'm going on the tangent again. Let's just continue. But I just wanted to just make that point because of what he said there.
To protect everyone who actually can't get vaccinated because they're either going through cancer or have some other compromised immune system issue.
Again, as I said, feel free to fact check me on this one, but as far as I know, a vaccine does not protect other people from catching it from you. So you can still get COVID if you're vaccinated. You will have a reduced version of the COVID, so you won't be as sick, but you can still spread after you're vaccinated. So as I said, do not expect the lockdown to stop. Do not expect the masks to be removed. Expect these things in place for a very long time.
So I mean, there's a million reasons, and it's talked about openly. It's talked about openly. It's not a secret.
I don't know if there's necessarily a million reasons, Ethan. You know that that's an exaggeration. I don't think there's a million reasons. There's maybe like a small handful of reasons. And if they're really important, if you really want to help people, if you really think that this is that important for you to spread, then why not list all of those reasons here? You've got a platform, you've got a podcast, you spend a lot of your podcast like talking about people and slandering them and bringing them down. Why not spend a segment of an hour talking about all of those reasons? If it's really that important for people to be vaccinated, like this is important. If you care about it, if you care about the population, then do that. That's something good for you to do there. Like inform us. You've got the platform to do it. You can inform us. You can give us information, and you can do well-versed, researched information with links in the description. You're capable of doing that. It's not as if you're not capable of doing that. I know it's not like your expertise. It's not your field. It's not what you usually do. But this is something that you claim to be passionate about. If you are passionate about it, then take it more seriously, and also be like decent about it. You don't need to be horrible to people that disagree with you. Same with Owen. He doesn't need to be horrible to people that disagree with him, So
literally just have to be so willfully ignorant to make this argument. In 1901, public health officials in Boston, Cambridge, issued their compulsory smallpox vaccination order. Oh, it wasn't forced, though. People who refused to get vaccinated faced a fine, equivalent to $150 today. Oh, man, that big government back in the... Meanwhile, Donald Trump goes, "Make America great again." Okay. Well, 1901, you had to get vaccinated against smallpox. Was that great or no? I think we all enjoy our kids not fucking dying of smallpox.
Okay, so you use an example here. This is actually a fair argument. You use an example of a time where vaccinations were enforced and it resulted in smallpox not spreading and people not getting smallpox as much. So this is a piece of good evidence. I can't even argue with that. So the point he's trying to make is that it was enforced then. People didn't like the fact that it was enforced, but it did end up helping the situation. So he's trying to say, even if it is enforced here, even if it infringes your rights, there is a chance that we can get through this and we can return to normality and less people will die. So fair point there. I'm not going to criticize that. There is the potential for that. But again, as a counter argument, that situation does not equate to this situation happening the same way. That does not equate to this vaccine, these multiple vaccines. It's not just one, it's multiple different kinds, different companies, Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson, and I think that there's another. It does not equate to those past vaccines do not equate to the success of this vaccine if it was mandated, So a mandate in order to save everybody does not equate to like 100% going to work, is the point I'm trying to make.
Damn. Such a moron. They just sound smart to people who are like super ignorant, but like
St. Patrick's Day is upon.
Whoa, who are you?
And that's the big riff in their big lie.
Again, I just want to quickly point that out, is that Ethan not only says, he calls him a moron, which is like, okay, but then he also says that the people that listen to them, the people that will allow those opinions to be listened to, like, and actually consider them as potentially true, you know, they're just people that like, I don't know. Again, it's just like it's just a little jab. Like you'll see it. He does it a lot. He does those little jabs. Like he'll go after you. Like just take those little jabs. Like take those little jabs. Like make people not feel good. You know, for having a differing opinion. Like it's just you don't need to belittle someone to make your point. If your point is strong, you don't need to belittle them. That's just basically what I'm gonna say on that. You don't need to belittle them.
every time that they'll never address. Because you are either admitting that the vaccine doesn't work
No, not at all.
and you want us to take something that doesn't work anyway,
Bruh, you are so fucking dumb.
or you're admitting you just want to force people, you just want to tell people what to do.
Okay, so Owen here is saying something that isn't necessarily what Ethan is doing, you know? That's not necessarily what Ethan is doing, but I can understand Owen's point that he's saying that that's what he's trying to do, but it isn't necessarily what Ethan's doing, you know? So I do agree with him on that. But again, you don't need to freaking just start insulting him. Like, I mean, I get it. Like, you know, I'm not trying to say that we should all be like snowflakes and not insult each other and not like call each other idiots for like bad takes or whatever, but it's just like sometimes if that takes center stage over your point, if belittling someone takes center stage over your point, or if that's how you use it in order to kind of press home your argument, then it's just bad. It's weak. Like it's not good for your argumenting style. Like it's not good and again, in debates, that's not what you do. You don't do that. You don't insult each other in debates. Like
This is the whole thing. I just want to tell people what to do. Like, to what end? Why do I fucking care what you do, dude? You're just a bully who wants to tell people what to do.
want to have a big corporate government. You just want to have a big government nanny state.
Yes, exactly.
And they'll
That's
never
what I care
admit
so
to either
passionately
one of
about.
those things, ever, because these are dishonest people. These are liars. These are frauds.
Yes.
These are phonies.
Yeah.
So they'll never.
So now he shows pictures of me. This is why I'm like he shows these photos of me.
okay, just before we move on to this next part, which I wanna kind of make a point on as well, but I just want to say is that like even if Owen is wrong about what he's saying about you trying to kind of support the government and blah blah blah, all this other stuff, what is very likely true is what I said earlier, is that the decisions and the things that you say align with your success, align with you doing well. Like Ethan is smart, so is Hila. They know what they're doing. They're very business savvy. They have like a serious think about, is this good for my career or not? So everything that they put out almost, you got to think goes through a filter of, is this a good decision or not to put out, including this video, including like all of the videos that have been put out where, you know, he's talking about like situations which are obviously like controversial and sharing like views that he knows he can be disliked for. He weighs out the good and the bad. Like, is this good or not to do? So like, you know, you got to understand that that's part of the factor in terms of like self-interest in comparison to mass interest, you know, and that's something that you really got to weigh out. Like, is Ethan looking out for himself and a particular group of people, or is he looking out for everybody? Is Owen looking out for himself and a particular group of people, or are they looking out for everybody, or are neither of them looking out for everybody? Are both of them just trying to look after their own particular little group? That's something that you got to consider when you're listening to these kind of arguments between them. But yeah, this point that Ethan's about to make, I agree with.
He goes, these are liars, these are frauds, these are phonies. Seems like he's putting a hit on me, doesn't it, a little bit? How he, like, you'll see even later, he keeps cutting to me when he's saying, like, the most heinous shit.
It's interesting that you got a bomb threat against your house like 2 days later.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I do not agree with Ethan getting a bomb threat to his house like 2 days after this. So if it was somebody from like the Infowars audience that did that, I do not condone that kind of behavior. I think it's awful for people to do that, and it's part of the reason why like I'd be scared to put this video up, and it's why I'd be scared to be like a big YouTuber, is because of like just the threat of people out there, which is like who are wily, you know, they will act, they will react wild and do terrible things, and like I don't mind the kind of like concept of showing the subject matter that you're speaking about, like what Owen did, in terms of like showing the pictures of Ethan to show who you're talking about. But I do agree that there seemed to be like a menacing undertone of putting his images up and putting an image up of him and Hila. Like it's putting their faces like on the screen while he's speaking negative about them. Like it just feels a little bit eerie. It feels a little bit off. Like as I said, it's the subject matter, it's who you're speaking about, so that makes sense to show them. But the way that he did it and the way that the Infowars sometimes presents things, because I have watched Infowars like a fair amount, sometimes the way that they'll present things is in a kind of manner where it's like smart, that they know they're not doing anything wrong. They know that they're not like necessarily calling to action to do anything, but it can insinuate it for sure. It 100% can insinuate it. So I can agree on this point, is that it's not very cool the way that this happened. Like, but yeah. Also, there is a chance that it's innocent. There is a chance that it's just images put up just to coincide. But as I said, that's not what I think. I think it's generally there's a sinister undertone. I don't know about a hit, but basically kind of like to let people know who you are so they can send the hate mob to kind of like do whatever they want, you know?
Totally.
Work, and they'll never admit they're actually for big government tyranny.
Yes, I'm for big government tyranny. Like, let's say, telling all companies they have to do one thing. Big companies, it's like these guys that can't fucking use their brains. Nothing makes sense. How is it? Okay. Anyway.
So Ethan's point here that he's trying to make, I actually found kind of interesting. It gave me new perspective on this whole situation. He's saying that basically, if the government says to all businesses, you are not allowed to ask for vaccine passports, then that's kind of like infringing on their freedoms to do that if they want that with their private business. If they want to ask for vaccines, then it's their right as a private business to do that. And Ethan's saying that that actually supports the kind of right-leaning conservative philosophy of freedom, is that, you know, private businesses should be able to make their own decision about whether people you know, supply vaccine passports or not. And I think that's kind of an interesting point. I never really thought of it that way. Like that kind of is an infringement of freedom of the business. You know, maybe like it's not nice to think of, but maybe businesses kind of should be allowed to do that. Like, but I'm not really for that. I think that it's a really bad idea, and I think that it has bad side effects. But you know, if you have your own business, you obviously you should be allowed to decide what you do with that business. If you don't want to serve people that are not vaccinated, then obviously that's your prerogative to do so. But yeah, I think that was kind of an interesting point that really kind of threw a spanner in the works for my kind of whole thoughts about this whole thing.
It's really weird. They talk about us and they come back and talk about us some more. So
Here's just another example of how leftists are just intellectually dishonest with themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So here's an individual, Ethan Klein. He gets to exist on YouTube. He gets to exist on Facebook. He gets to promote himself on social media. And he knows in order to be able to do that,
because this guy's banned from everything that he just listed. So
right. So I'm part of the problem because I haven't gotten banned.
He has to promote the big government. He has to promote the big lie. So
he says that I have to support the big government because I don't want to get banned from YouTube. Bro, can I just have an opinion? Like, why has everything got to be a conspiracy?
Okay, so yeah, like I agree. You can just have an opinion, but there can be alternative motives to your opinion that can also be, sometimes it can even be determined subconsciously that you don't even know. You don't even know why you have your opinion, like on a deeper level, you know? And I do agree with Owen's point here a little bit in the sense of like, obviously Ethan is very YouTube friendly. Like obviously, you know, during the whole like Leafy incident or whatever, like, you know, Ethan was telling, you know, like just that famous meme about him telling Leafy to adapt, because Ethan did adapt. You know, he knows what works and he knows what he's allowed to say and he knows what's slightly controversial. I remember this one particular clip, which I never actually clipped, but I thought about clipping, was basically when Ethan was actually talking slightly against the narrative, against the kind of main agreed concept of this whole kind of pandemic and stuff like that. It was in one of the podcasts. He gave an opinion which was slightly like off like the narrative, so like he was questioning it, which is actually really good. Like, you know, for you to do that, you should question, you shouldn't believe everything just immediately. And he asked like the crew or whatever, and then Hila said, oh no, cut this part, and for whatever reason Dan left it in and it made it through. But Hila was trying to cut that part because, as I said again, these guys know what they're doing. They're smart, they're not silly. They know what is going to potentially put them in a position where their video can get flagged. You know, they know, they're very super conscious about monetization and not losing the ability for their video to be monetized. So they are aware of those things, and that is a factor to definitely consider. There is financial gain for them to share certain views. There is a financial incentive for them to share certain views. Like, please consider that. And also, even them to themselves, like, have self-awareness. Like, think about it and be honest with yourself. Is there any part of that that is motivating my opinion here? Or is it simply from the case of I'm trying to look after people, I want people to be vaccinated so we're all safe? Is it only that? And you need to be honest with yourself. Nobody else knows that but Ethan himself. So
No, he doesn't actually believe this. It's just to support big government. Okay, bro.
That he can have his videos on YouTube. He says, hey, no vaccine passport, curse words.
By the way, I love that they don't curse on Infowars. Like, bro, you literally you called this Sandy Hook shooting a fake.
okay, 2 points here. First of all, before we get to the Sandy Hook thing, first of all, he has to not swear because he's on radio. Like, if he could swear, he would. He sweared a couple of times, like, kind of, heat of the moment thing, or for dramatic effect, same as Alex. They swear on occasion, but they're on radio. They're not allowed to swear. They'll get like sanctions, and it'll be an issue for the stations that they're on. And Infowars are freaking hanging on by a thread because obviously they're banned in a lot of different areas, and they rely on the support of you know they rely on the support of the fan base. That's the reason why they plug in all of the supplements and all of that stuff all of the time. They're relying on their supporters in order for them to stay afloat, in order for them to afford everything. I do think that they make a fair pocket amount of money themselves, which I do think is questionable in terms of their motives as well. Again, look at the financial thing. So, like, obviously, I think that they do care about people a little bit, but at the same time, they are making, I think that they're making more than enough to live comfortably, like each person that's working at Infowars. But as I said, similar to you, Ethan, the way that you will make sure not to swear in the first 30 seconds of the video or whatever, like, before, or you make sure to say SA instead of, the other words, like you're calling him out here and you're criticizing him for something that you do. You're trying to protect your business, you're trying to protect your video, and that's what he's doing, is he's trying to make sure that he isn't taken down from the radio or faced with any sanctions for swearing. So it's a bit of a weird criticism, this part here. But again, it's just when Ethan doesn't like someone, or when Owen doesn't like someone. When people don't like people, sometimes the first thing they do is you got to call them ugly, or you got to call them stupid, or you got to pull down something about them in order for you to kind of hammer home your point. Again, weak argument.
Job, and you had parents of the Sandy Hook victims being harassed to the point they had to move out of sight.
Okay, all right. So this is a really fair point. Again, Alex has admitted this, and there has been a lot of issues to do with that Sandy Hook situation where Infowars made a bad report and made a bad conspiracy theory about something that could have happened there, which essentially caused a lot of issues for some families' lives. But you're taking an incident from a news network that is isolated, happened many, many years ago. You know that this can happen to you as well, Ethan. You know that there's, the blackface joke that you did, and then there's obviously the N word, F word, drama with you. You can take incidents and isolate them, and try and kind of summarize an entire network or a person's character by a particular set of events, but it is not representative of all of their work. Infowars does put out content and does put out information, sometimes accurate. Even Joe Rogan has admitted that and said that on his podcast, that Alex Jones does tend to be right about a fair amount of what he says. And mistakes are going to happen when you're in the news. That's just the way that it is. Look at any real news network, quote unquote real news network. So look at CNN, look at Fox, blah blah blah. Look at all of these other news networks. Obviously they get stories wrong. It happens, and they freaking will propaganda and emphasize stories for effect. I mean, one thing that I've noticed a lot more is just the breaking news tagline, just like all the time now, for like just the most ridiculous, silly things. Breaking news in giant black letters with a yellow background, or like red background with white letters, like, just everything's breaking news. Like, news in general, most of the time, is not really good. Like, news is just a joke majority of the time. And I do think that Infowars, at the least, I think that they do try their best to kind of report stories that other news networks aren't. Whether Infowars has an agenda behind doing that or not, Like, I do think sometimes they do, but other times I do feel like they're getting information and they're sharing it, which is really helpful for us as people, as opposed for us to just get no information whatsoever, which is like the main news is really kind of doing. There's not really much information on the main news majority of the time. So
At a state where you won't say dipshit. Talk about virtue signaling.
Wet ass P word.
You really won't say dipshit on Infowars? That's just so odd to me. Well, this kids are watching. It's like, fuck you, you are such a douche.
yeah, and it's just a bit weird that he hammers home this point. Obviously, he's making the joke or whatever, like for the laughs and stuff. But again, he does the same thing with SA. You know, he does the same thing with his YouTube videos and stuff. Like, and obviously, he's always got Dan in the back laughing to back him up. So it's not really the best environment to know whether your take is good or not. Also, as well, something else I just want to point out. Notice how Zach and Ian are completely quiet in this segment. Notice how there's not a discussion about the vaccine passports. Notice how there's not a discussion about vaccines. Because if there's some differing views, it could affect the video. So that's the reason. Again, you just got to pay attention to that kind of stuff. Like, you know, he usually asks for the take of the people in the back. Like, why didn't he ask for the take of the people in the back this time? And also, they're smart as well. So even if they did have like an alternate take, they're not going to share that take if it's going to affect the potential of the video. Like, of course, like, you know, we're all adults here. We understand how the world works. We understand how business works. We understand how YouTube works. Like, anybody with like any kind of inkling of understanding about all of this stuff understands that they are not allowed to share views that are kind of like a bit on the edge, you know, because it really does risk. It comes with risk, you know, as does this video that I'm making here, which is coming up to a freaking hour long. So anybody who's still here, like, wow, man, I appreciate it. I appreciate it a lot. But, you know, please leave comments, comment away, say your opinions, like leave lengthy comments because I do read them when people do that. But yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for watching this. I really do appreciate it. It means a lot to me because obviously tiny freaking YouTuber over here. So
It's not fascism, you whiny F words.
F word.
We are trying to prevent people from dying. Oh,
P word is
please.
female genitalia.
Oh, please. You're trying to prevent people from dying? Please.
Oh, please. There's big lie number one. So first they insult you and use curse words to hide their inferior intellect.
Oh.
This fucking guy.
Then they give you their big virtue signal lie. We're trying to prevent people from dying.
Oh, who would want to prevent people from dying?
What is their theory?
There's almost been 600,000 people dead. What is the...
They all deny that too.
Oh, okay.
They said those people would have died
Well, of
anyway.
course.
okay, all right. So Dan's point here, saying that they all denied that too, kind of, he's trying to kind of belittle that point as well. There's a lot of information out there that people who have died with COVID, there's people who have died with comorbidities. So there is potential that COVID sped up the death. So if they had like cancer or if they had something else, COVID, you know, if they had like a respiratory condition, COVID made it worse and then they died faster because of COVID, but they were already in a position of having serious health conditions which made them really sick anyway. But then there have been cases of, one, false positives, so people not actually having COVID but coming up as positive. And there's also been cases of people dying from other things like the flu, like pneumonia, and then like other things. Like there's been occurrences where deaths have been reported as COVID, but they actually died from another source. Now, again, this is not conspiracy theory. This is easy to find. Probably harder to find, actually, now that I think about it further along the line. But when it was all happening in the very beginning, which is where the numbers were the highest, really, really high in the beginning, that's when a lot of that stuff was a lot more messy. And there was a lot of stuff with numbers being mixed up, false positives with other things being put in as COVID, like people dying from other sources. These are things which are literally true, like literally true. And if you mean to sit there and tell me and think that all of those deaths are 100% accurately COVID, that there is no possibility whatsoever that they died from another cause and it was listed as COVID, then I think that you're being dishonest. I generally think you're being dishonest if that's what if that's the stance you want to come from, of that's what you think. But if it is what you think, fair enough. I massively doubt that all of those deaths are COVID.
Well, this is the thing. You cannot have a conversation when you can't agree on some basic facts. They go,
Again, You can have a conversation when you can't agree on basic facts. And if you want to convince someone of facts, you need to come with evidence and you need to come with sources, multiple sources. And as I said, for me, one source from a reputable like name, like for example, I don't know, if you want to use CNN as a source, like there's a lot of people who don't really like CNN. If you want to use Fox as a source, or if you want to use like even the WHO, who've been caught up in their own mix-ups several times. If you want to take the WHO as an official source, and that's it, that's as far as your fact checking goes. Or if you want to take the NHS, if you want to take people who are literally profiting from the program, if you want to take them as the source, then that's not far research into the fact. That's not far research into the facts. And that's just the way, again, it's just the way it is. Like, and that's what a lot of this is about. Like, a lot of people will do that. They'll get like one article and then that's it. Boom, evidence. It's not evidence. In my opinion, that's not evidence. It's just the way that I think on this. But yeah, here we go. So again, I'll let him continue. Just going after Owen here.
COVID's not real. It's like, okay, well, conversation's over. 600,000 people have not died. It's like, okay, well, how are we going to have a conversation? We can't agree on the premise, right?
Well, you can have a conversation because you can ask them why they think it's not real. You can have a conversation because you can show them why it is real. You can have a conversation because, you know, you can compare facts, you can compare articles, you can compare sources of material that have convinced you of a narrative. You know, there's a narrative that COVID isn't real. There's information that supports that. There's a reason why people think that. So they can present all of the things that have convinced them to think that. You know, there's a narrative that COVID is real and that it's really bad. So you produce the evidence that says that. There's a narrative that COVID is real but not that bad. You produce all the evidence that it's the same with anything. You know, when there's all of this information, when there's, you know, like Jake Paul in this current situation where he's being accused, like there's a narrative for both sides. There's evidence on both sides. There's like a big Twitter thread. You know, you look at the evidence, you compile it, and you share your opinion. You know, sometimes people base their opinion just off whether they like someone, or you know whether someone's a victim or not. And then sometimes people base their victim on like countless, you know, countless articles, countless accounts of a particular thing. And then sometimes there's really strong evidence on both sides. That's the crazy thing. Like life is not black and white. Sometimes there's strong evidence on both sides, and you need to kind of either sit in the middle or take a gamble on what you think it could be. And it just doesn't happen when you have a mindset like this. Like, oh, you don't think it's real, let's not talk then. We don't agree on the premise, let's not talk. That's like very close-minded in my opinion. It's very kind of narrow-minded in the sense of like, oh, you know what, you completely disagree with me, I'm not even going to bother. Like, there's no point. And we don't get anywhere then. If everybody in the world functioned like that, we wouldn't be where we're at now in terms of any success, because it just doesn't work. So
They live in fucking La La Land.
you'll have there's people who literally would say the same thing about you. Like, you can say that they live in La La Land, but there's obviously people who will say the same thing about you. But what does it really mean? Like, what does it mean for either of you? Oh, that person lives in La La Land. Like, does that? So again, it's just diminishing all of their points. It's diminishing all of your points. If I say you're in La La Land, it's diminishing all of his points. If I say he's in La La Land, it's just, you just don't take anything they say serious. You know, it's just not the way that life is. It's just not the way that things work.
Info losses, more like.
Huh?
Infowars, info L's, info losses. There's 563,000 deaths from COVID in the United States. By the way, I'd like to go back to when I first started talking about this, and I said I could see up to 1 million people dying from this, and everyone thought I was insane.
Okay, all right. So here's something else which I've noticed that he does a lot when it comes to this story. Ethan made a prediction really early on when it came to all of this stuff, and he was really kind of on edge and preparing people for it and kind of like saying that this is going to be serious. Part of why he has his opinion now could very likely and potentially be motivated by that. The fact that he made a call, which is a prediction, and he feels good. Like there's this kind of like reassurance loop that has happened, that he basically kind of like, he wants to be right about what he thought earlier on. And that want to be right, like trust me, it is poison sometimes in humans. That want to be right can dismiss all argument, all counterpoints can be dismissed if you want to be right. That's all you need is the want to be right. And Ethan might really just want to be right about this. And sometimes when you want to be right, there's nothing that can be said. You'll dismiss it. And again, he doesn't watch the whole video here. Ethan is guilty of doing that in lots of situations. Thankfully, he addressed the gokanaru video, watched the whole thing. But again, he did skip a couple of points, which were really strong points against him. You know, if you want to be impartial and if you want to be fair and you want to do something, you need to watch the whole thing. It's like this. If he takes this video now, which I doubt will get any attention from him, but if he takes this video now and he watches 5 minutes, it's just not the same thing. You know, obviously if he's on a podcast, if he puts like 5 minutes up, that's fine. But like he needs to watch the whole thing in his private time in order for him to like actually have like a fair like assessment of a situation. Like doesn't matter if you think someone's intolerable or not. Like, and again, it just shows if you find someone intolerable and you don't want to watch them, that again, that's to do with your criticism of them as a person, not the points they're making. And this is just, it happens a lot. Like, you know, I've watched Ethan enough to kind of see his habits, and like I love him. Like I genuinely love him. I think he's great. Like he's flawed, like we all are. Like I'm flawed. Like we're all flawed. But like sometimes like his flaws do really do irritate me. It's like a you know having like I don't know. It's just like being around someone like a long time. Like obviously I don't know him in person or anything, but like obviously flaws come out on the thing, and sometimes I just really disagree with him. And I wish I could have a chat with him. I wish I could have a talk with him. You know, it would be great to freaking chat with him and just like literally pick his brain and to actually be taken seriously instead of kind of like you know being dismissed. But I reckon if I ever met him or if we ever had a discussion, I think that he would just completely dismiss me and all my viewpoints because I have a lot of disagreements with Ethan. So.
People,
Fearmonger.
people thought I was crazy. I mean, it's going to be close to 1 million by the time we get out of this, man.
Okay, so something quite interesting there that he does say, which is kind of like, again, it's telling, is that he said that people thought he was crazy and there was a little bit of a pause there. I'm not going to go, like say that I'm a psychiatrist or whatever, but what that actually could have meant just then is that like he was brought down by the fact that he was getting lots of hate and he was getting people like, you know, saying that he was a fearmonger and just like he was made to feel crap then. So now, not only is there kind of like potentially the motivation of like wanting to be right, there's also the motivation of being able to say I told you so. And those two things in the human psyche can be strong motivators. So the fact that he was made to feel crazy, but then he's made to feel right, like kind of, haha, look at you suckers. Like, I do think that Ethan definitely takes pleasure in one-upping people. Like, he does take pleasure in one-upping people. And I think that that's kind of maybe a factor as well towards why his viewpoints are in the way that they are. But as I said, these are all potential. There is potential that he just cares about people a lot as well and just wants everybody to be vaccinated for the safety of everybody. There is that potential, but I'm just saying what is potentially here. You know, let's be honest. And I think that you know there's a lot here that is not completely covered. It's only partially covered.
Almost
Closer
3
than
million.
What?
Almost 3 million worldwide.
Yeah. That's, dude, dude, the United States.
Okay, so let's just break that down for 1 second as well, because obviously that said is kind of like LB makes that point to kind of be like, oh, it's serious, 3 million worldwide. But outside of COVID, let's talk about this realistically. How much do we talk about death outside of COVID? Let's forget about COVID for a second. Let's talk about pre-COVID. How much was we really talking about death? How much was we really talking about how many people died from cancer each year? Like how much was we really talking about that? And how much access did we have to those numbers? You know, how many people died from pneumonia before COVID existed? How many people died from the flu before COVID existed? You know, let's talk about those things. And also let's talk about the fact that there's nearly 8 billion of us and 3 million people have died from COVID. So that is less than 1%. Way, way less than 1%. It's like less than 0.01% as far as I know. So this whole kind of, 3 million worldwide, take it seriously, philosophy clashes with the concept of people have been dying from lots of stuff. People are dying right now, sadly. As you're watching this video, somebody is dying. That's the statistical fact of the world. You know, there's someone being born in this minute. There's several people being born in this minute, and there are several people dying in this minute because there's a multitude of people of different ages with different conditions. There's lots of causes of death, and I know none of us like death. None of us want it to happen. None of us want it to happen to our loved ones. But unfortunately, it's something that did happen pre-COVID, and all of a sudden, it's like it's only just started happening. People have only just started dying with this whole COVID thing. It's flawed. Just the whole concept of like trying to point as that as the thing, you know. Again, if you disagree with me, feel free to just, you know, say.
This has had such a huge portion of that. That's so crazy.
Coronavirus!
It's spiking big time in like India and Brazil. It's about to get really, really bad there.
Is it though? Like, is it really spiking really bad though, or is it news again? And again, I'm not saying that it isn't. There is a chance that it is. But also, again, what is spiking really bad? Are we talking like a hundred, like a couple hundred people? Are we talking of a couple thousand people? Are we talking a couple 100,000 people? Like, again, it's just the terminology. It's just so dishonest. It's not straight. It's not straight shooting. Like, come with numbers, come with evidence. If you want to talk about things, if you want to be taken seriously, like, it's just constant.
Not good.
Coronavirus!
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
As tens of millions are murdered at abortion factories, and you don't care about that. So sorry, that doesn't work for us. That doesn't.
Okay, so I have to care about one thing for my opinion. First of all, obviously we disagree on the whole notion of fetuses being equated to murder.
Okay, so I'm not going to get freaking super big into this one, but basically, like, again, there's the whole debate when it comes to abortions, like whether a fetus is considered living or not. The fact of the matter is, if you do not terminate the pregnancy, a lot of those children will be born. So, therefore, you are essentially stopping life. Like, the life is formed, a physical being is formed, and it will live if you do not terminate. So, the point of 10 million abortions, like, that's a lot. Like, when you think about it, it's a lot. The fact of that many is like a strong point when it comes to this. Like, in terms of like valuing human life, like if you want to think of it as like if you want to consider that something to value, but then obviously people equate sometimes fetus being the same thing as a sperm. Like, do you know, obviously there's lots and lots of sperm, like, do you care about the lives of sperm or whatever, you know? So like, again, there's arguments to be had there, so I'm not really going to get big into that one, but basically, like, I agree with Ethan on one hand, in the sense of like he's taking something else which is out of topic and using it with this, but I disagree with this, with the fact, because that's what Ethan also done earlier in the podcast. He has taken another example and he's made a parallel to it, and now he's saying that Owen can't do the same thing. He literally earlier one was saying like, oh, you need a driving license to drive, and now Owen's saying like, oh well, you know, lots of children are stopped from being born, so you know that's a lot of people dying as well, and you don't care about that. And he's saying, oh no, you can't bring that in because it's a different topic. It's like, Ethan, like, dude, the hypocrisy, man. Like, you know, obviously there was the meme about it and the gokanaru video and everything. It's just like, how can you not see it? Like, how are you not self-aware? Or are you self-aware and you're just a giant troll? Because that's something else I've always thought about Ethan, is that he actually understands all of this stuff. Like, he gets it all. Like, he understands it all, but he's just a giant troll. He just knows that it gets reactions and he knows it gets views. Like, maybe he's just a self-aware hypocrite. But I don't know, though. I don't know if he generally doesn't see it.
But let's say we did agree on that. I can't have opinion about this one thing because apparently you think that I don't care about this other thing that's important to you. Your logic doesn't make sense, bro. Let's just argue the one topic.
Okay, but how are you meant to do that in this way if he is allowed, like, he's not allowed to make parallels and comparisons, but you are? It's not really fair.
Dipshit.
Doesn't work on us. If you don't want to get the vaccine, that's your right. Okay.
We love
But
that.
I also have a right to know that your dumbass isn't putting my family at risk at crowded events. Actually, no, you don't. That's funny. Actually, you don't have that right at all. In fact, I have that. The exact opposite is true. I have the right of privacy. See how that works? So it's curse word, complain, intellectual dishonesty, lie, lie, lie.
Okay, currently, like, the thing is as well, what Owen's saying is true there, because that's currently the law in America. Like, that's the law, you know? So he's saying that he does have that right. And Owen is one of those people who's like big America, pro America, kind of pro like the concept of America, the kind of the Constitution, the morals and the concept, the idea of America. So is Alex. You know, this is what Infowars is about. They're really like pro-American, the kind of the idea of America before, like obviously this kind of changeover now into kind of like a more um it's really being challenged. Like you have half of the country who don't like that concept of America, so they're challenging it. But basically, Owen is saying that, and it's true for the moment. But those rights can easily be taken away. Like there's that George Carlin stand-up comedy routine, which is so true about rights, is that they're really generally just temporary. They're man-made, and they're to do with how it benefits the people who create those laws. And if they want to change those laws in order to benefit themselves in a different way, then they can and they will. And you've seen the Constitution violated more times than we can count. You've seen law violated more times than we can count. And I just think that it's a tough battle that Owen's trying to fight and that Alex is trying to fight for this concept of America the way that it once stood. Because I do think that right now that whole thing is being challenged a lot. I mean, you got half of the country that wants it to stay the same, so you never know. It might stay the same, but I think that unfortunately I don't know if it's unfortunately or fortunately, we're in a time of change where a lot of things have happened, and a lot of things have gone against that whole concept. So
I didn't really understand this. He says I don't have a right to be safe in public events.
You don't have a right to know that the vaccination status of other people is basically what they're saying. What he's saying.
Okay. Well, sure. But the venue has a right to fucking ask if you're vaccinated as a private business. And then I'll go to those places only.
okay, so he has to that point there. Like again, it was one that really made me kind of question like things, and it was nice because like I lean a lot more towards like not agreeing with a lot of this stuff, but that's like obviously a strong point that he makes. And again, I don't have to like it, but it is kind of true. They own the business. Who am I to say, oh, you're not allowed to tell me that I'm not allowed in? You know, like I'm not anyone to decide that. They get to decide that. It's their business. You know.
Where everyone's vaccinated.
Did you get your shots?
He's like, I have a right to infect you. It's my given right to go to large gatherings and infect people.
Yeah, but Ethan, as I said, the vaccine does not stop you from infecting people. Again, look that up. You can fact check me on that. If I'm wrong, then please give me strong evidence. I'll pin the comment. Give me strong evidence in that one, and I will pin the comment. But the vaccine is to protect you. It's not to stop you from spreading it. You can still get COVID, and you'll give it to people still, even if you're vaccinated.
Your privacy? I'm sorry, what exactly privacy am I invading by knowing if you've been vaccinated, bro? Like, come on. You can't.
You're invading his health records, which some people do not want shared with the world or want shared with private businesses. That's a fair point. You know, it's privacy, and you can want your privacy without there being guilt. It can be because you don't want people to know your information, like you don't want them to know how you're vulnerable, because again, there's exploitation. Like literally, you know how capitalism works. If it exists, people can exploit it, you know? I'm not saying that I'm pro or anti-capitalism. I'm saying that if it exists, it can be exploited. And if people know your health records, they can exploit you. That's just the way that it is. And it's like I said earlier in this video, you know, don't think that this is the last thing that they do it with. It will breed essentially the concept of vaccine passports and health, you know, health provability, and also that information potentially being sold on to advertisers. You know, it it's a mess. Like there is some bad sides of it, even if it is ultimately for good.
Can't hide behind these bullshit that it's my privacy. Okay, dude. I'm not asking for a dick picture. Just want to know if you have a deadly contagious disease. My privacy, bro. I don't want to tell you if I've been vaccinated. Okay, fuckface. Then don't come into the ball game. Go home and jerk off and watch it on TV.
Okay, so again, on that note, is again that's going to be a very divisive one, because he's talking about the ball game and talking about everybody being vaccinated at the ball game. What happens when the players, some of them don't want to get vaccinated and stuff, you know? Does it mean that we have like, are we going to see a future where there's like you know, stadiums where and like people who all go together who are vaccinated, and then all of the people that didn't want to do it like all leave, and then they're all together? Is that what we're gonna see? I don't know. It's very interesting where the world is currently at. I honestly don't know where this is all gonna end up, but I think that there's a lot of people that don't want to get vaccinated, and I don't know how many. I think Ethan does touch on it. I think it's 70% of people needs to be vaccinated for there to be herd immunity, is what they're saying. I don't know if we're gonna hit those numbers. We'll have to see. But yeah.
But here's the real intellectual dishonesty.
Uh-oh.
But I continue. So if that means you can't go to a movie theater or a ball game because you choose not to get a vaccine, then that's your choice. But it's not your right to put others in danger. Again, we're not
That is my right to put others in danger.
putting others in danger. That's your big virtue signal lie.
Okay.
So stop whining and deal with the consequences of your poorly informed decision. But
Okay, so Ethan just said prove it. Prove you're not putting people in danger. So this isn't really necessarily proof, but it's something to think about. Look at the protests. So look at the Black Lives Matter protests. Look at the Capitol rally. Look at any kind of mass gatherings, you know, in England, America, etc. Look at the mass gatherings of people. A lot of the time, a lot of people not wearing masks, and also a mask being a thin piece of material that does not completely stop the transmission of airborne particles, which has been proven time and time again. There's been a lot of interaction. There's been a lot of people in positions and in potential situations to spread, and the spread has happened over and over again. And we're not seeing jumbo insane amounts of death. It's just, again, it's just something to think about. It's just something to think about, and we're going to continue to see it. Watch this as the year goes on. Like there'll be mass gatherings of people, and we need to see if there's a correlation of death. And there was key moments last year where there was mass gatherings of people, and there wasn't an aligning mass amount of deaths. So again, you know, this is something to think about. Again, I don't know, but that point, in my opinion, kind of seems to sway more Owen's side in the sense of that potentially we're not endangering each other by meeting up. You know, there is that possibility. I know you're trying to be safe, Ethan, but there is that possibility that by meeting with people, you're not actually endangering each other. There is that possibility. There is a possibility that there is an agenda, and it is to do with money, and it's to do with lots of other things. There is that possibility, and I just think that it should be considered. You know, outside of the YouTube platform, in private, where you don't need to share your views and worry about getting taken down.
wait a second.
Yeah, this is what
Wait a
I love. He keeps cutting the pictures of me like, here he is, guys. Go get him.
As you promote the vaccine, by the way, this is the guy that shows the entire world pictures, loves to show people pictures of his baby's butt.
This part, I was like, oh my God.
Bruh.
So he's, I guess, referring to, and let me look now. I guess he's referring to one Instagram post when Theodore was a newborn baby, and I posted a picture of me holding him, and he was naked, so you just saw his butt. And I thought it was a cute picture of me and my newborn son. Oh, you have it?
I sent in this.
I'm like, what's the, so like they apparently dug deep to find this because it's really old. Oh, here it is.
70.
Okay, I'm gonna let it play when he puts the picture up, but I don't particularly want the picture up. So my point here is that Owen doesn't necessarily say that Ethan is a pedophile. He doesn't necessarily say that. Like again, you can make the you can believe that he's insinuating it, that Ethan's pedophilic. You can believe that he's insinuating it. But regardless of that point, I do not agree with this picture. I do not agree with putting photos of your child like that, because like, why are you doing it? Like, you know, it's a cute picture for you. It's a cute picture for you and Hila. It's a cute picture for your family and friends, like people that you trust. But you're putting that picture on the internet where pedophiles are known to exist, Ethan. Like, how is that not computed in your head? Like, I don't even really want this picture in my video, because I know that there's idiots out there that are like interested in that. Again, you know, it's a whole nother topic, but basically there's people out there who are into that, dude. So take that down, man. I still think it's a bad take to have that picture up. I think you should take it down. And I'm not happy that it's going to appear in my video here. But like, I don't want to like, I don't know. I don't want to in fact, see if I can. He puts like the picture up of his kid, like bare bottom, and it's like I don't really want that on my video. So like, you know, if I'm gonna freaking say that, I should freaking support my own point. But basically, there's people out there, like you have a giant platform, you have a giant audience, you have people who have liked that picture in a way that is not, it's not meant to be liked, and it's just something for you to consider, and it's something for you to be realistic about. Take that picture down, remove it from the internet the best that you can, because you're allowing people access to it the more that you put it up, and you shouldn't have put it up in the podcast. You know, I agree with Owen in the sense that like I'm glad that he outed you for it because I didn't know it existed, and I think it's good to kind of criticize you on that. But I don't like the fact that again he brought attention to it. It's like the problem is when you bring attention to it, you bring attention to the people that you don't want to bring attention to it to. So, you know, unfortunately, as a result of this, people with those kind of brains that are interested in that have now seen it more. Like, get that through your head. Like, you know, you shouldn't have shown it. Just wasn't wise. Keep it between yourself and your family. Like that, and people that you trust. You need to trust them a lot because there's a lot of people. Sadly, there's a lot of people in the world who have those kind of tendencies, and it happens behind closed doors. So you should not allow content of that nature to be on the internet in any form. You have to protect yourself. It's the way. It's the best way to kind of to fight that. So I'm gonna skip past it.
Yeah, I know. But they agree with all that. They're like, no problem with all that.
So I
Should
skipped
have talked about the photo of your ass.
I skipped a little bit there. Again, he's just showing the picture and he's saying, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with it." I just thought it was like a nice picture of me and my child. I don't like skipping. Like that's the whole point of this video going so long. It's an hour and 20 minutes. I don't like skipping. I wanted to do the whole video, but didn't really want to show the image.
That's what I was referring to.
No, because they had to go with the baby thing because their whole shtick is based on pedophiles and shit.
Right.
So he's going to insinuate I'm a pedophile based on posting a photo of my newborn baby 2 years ago. Bro, I cannot. The fact he brought that up blew my mind.
Again, Ethan, whether that's what he's insinuating or not, you should. I don't think that this is like trolling. I think that he generally just isn't aware. Just be aware that it's just not good. Just take it down.
You can talk about intellectual dishonesty right after showing my picture, by the way. I mean, that's insanity. That's like fucking crazy. I stopped after this, so I don't know where this goes, but I was like, whoa.
By the way, this is the guy that shows the entire world pictures, loves to show people pictures of his baby's butt.
No context. That's it.
I wouldn't be into that. He's into that, but that's fine.
It's fine.
Again, by him saying he's into that, it makes it seem like he's insinuating that Ethan's like a pedophile. But, you know, I don't think that's nice. I don't think that's good of him to do. And obviously it is a bit kind of weird that they scanned through his pictures to find a really old photograph of that in order just to kind of pull him down. But regardless of Owen's intent and meaning, as I said, I just think, you know, just you shouldn't have that on the internet. It's just not wise.
What the fuck?
Isn't that so crazy? It's so crazy. Man. Like, what?
And again, like his crew of, unfortunately, yes men did not pull him up here. There was an opportunity for them, and maybe they said it to him after stream. I don't know. I imagine that the picture's still up because Ethan's quite stubborn. That's where you pull him aside and say, like, dude, like, you know, you shouldn't have that up. The internet's a weird place.
God, look at this guy.
Why did you even bring that up? I mean, what's that got to do with anything?
He gets to put his videos on YouTube. He knows he's not that talented, so he has to be on YouTube, and he has to tell the...
Wait.
We're talented than you, bitch.
Wait, I'm not talented, so I'm on YouTube? Why are you so desperate to get back on YouTube then?
Exactly.
You guys are fucking crying.
You can't even fucking post on YouTube.
You guys would kill to be able to post on YouTube again.
That's literally true. I can't back Owen on that one. Like, they literally, like, Infowars would love to be back on YouTube.
Big corporate lies to get promoted on YouTube.
Yes. Yeah, YouTube promotes me a lot.
That's aside from the point. Because I'd still love to this day to have someone argue that they're pro-freedom, but also they want everybody to take a vaccine.
Pro-freedom.
Oh, this is from the beginning.
I'm pro-freedom. This guy's a fucking...
Pure chaos, baby. Let's go. Pure freedom for the world.
It's just like
But here's
such
the riff.
fucking middle school
If you-
mentality. I'm pro freedom.
Okay, well, if you're gonna say that, Dan, you need to be honest and say that Ethan's the same way. It is middle school mentality. I think majority of the world has middle school mentality, to be honest. Like, including myself, I'm not freaking innocent. Like, I act petty. I say that kind of stuff as well. But again, I think it's nice every so often to kind of redirect back to being adults and addressing something in an adult manner. You know, we're all freaking just, we're all just freaking teenagers that grew up and, you know, put on suits and ties and we act the part. But I think a lot of us, we're still kind of, we still have those tendencies in us,
Yeah,
You'll see on the
their
handball
argument is
court.
so narrow and so ignorant. You have to be living in like the smallest, darkest box in the world to actually think what he's saying is interesting.
You believe in the vaccine.
Again, like, it's just, why go after the audience? And just because, like, you think that of him, why does that have to represent everybody? Like, why is everybody who listens to what he say, like, why is everybody just, the point I'm making? I said it earlier.
And you believe it works so great
Believe in.
and you get it, then why are you still worried about somebody else who's not been vaccinated?
So this was the clip from the beginning. I already addressed
Yeah.
this.
And that's the big riff
Here
in
he
their
is,
big
boys.
lie every time that they'll never
And his
address.
wife.
Because you are either admitting that the vaccine doesn't work
Nope.
and you want us to take something that doesn't work anyway, or you're admitting you just want to force people, you just want to tell people what to do. You just want to have a big corporate government.
What's
you
the
just want to have a
Infowars,
big government nanny state.
What's their narrative on the vaccine? Are they George Soros microchip, or are they forced sterilization?
I
or like
heard
what's...
a clip of Alex Jones saying that HIV is in this vaccine. The HIV virus is in this vaccine. The HIV virus is in this vaccine. Don't you people understand that?
So they're giving us all AIDS.
Yeah, it's not safe. He doesn't know why, but it's not safe.
Okay, so Infowars have reported lots of information on this. Again, like, how much I say is obviously, like, my video can be affected by that, but basically they don't trust it. Infowars doesn't trust it. They put a lot of articles and a lot of information out from people on the inside and from people with all different kinds of walks of life, sharing their experiences and sharing their perception on the vaccine, all in a negative light, which is something to bear in mind. You're never going to see a pro-vaccine video on Infowars, but yeah, obviously they just don't agree with it. They think it's got stuff in there which is dangerous for humans. They think it's untested. They think it's potentially gonna make people sick or infertile. Lots of different things they've shared. But yeah, so that's pretty much their stance on it from what I've seen anyway, from the content I've seen.
HIV is in this vaccine. AlexJones.com. We're selling our own vaccine against the COVID virus. It has a ground up sawdust, ant droppings, and caterpillar juice.
It's not funny.
Yeah, so Ethan's just obviously making fun of the supplement stuff that Alex does, like, it's an easy free joke. But anyway, I'm gonna round this up here because I think that he goes on now to speak about the Alex Jones puppet story, which is not really what I wanted to cover. I just wanted to cover this segment between Ethan and Owen. Thank you for watching this. It's been like an hour and a half now. So that's just my opinion on this whole thing. Basically, to summarize, just give like a final take. I just think that people need to be a little bit more, if we actually do want to make progress and if we actually want to unite, which I think is one of the strongest moves that we can make as a species, is unite. If we actually want to reach that point, then the playground insults and stuff, like, they need to be left at the door when we're having a debate about something so serious, because this affects entire, like, pretty much most of the world. Like, literally most of the world. Like, we haven't really been in a situation like this, as far as I know, in my lifetime. So it's a time to kind of put our heads together, to discuss things, to allow people to freaking share their opinions, to hold people accountable when they've lied from positions of power. All of these things need to be discussed, and I think that's, well, yeah, pretty much that's my stance. But yeah, anyway, thank you for watching this. Been a long one. I appreciate it if you've made it all the way to the end. Please leave a comment. I really would appreciate that. Say anything you want. It can be short, it can be long, anything you want. I really want to kind of like engage in conversation a little bit on this. I will reply to as many comments as I can on this video. But yeah, okay, that's it. I'm going to round it up. Thanks for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you in another one maybe at some point. Peace out.